What is up, Twin Cities? You are listening to Miss Margaret Live. I am your host, Miss Margaret. And as you know, this is the show where those on the menu always have a seat at the table. And it's been on the menu a lot in the past. I would say definitely about a couple of years. CBD. What is CBD? Hemp, all type of stuff. And we see a lot of folks talking about using CBD almost for anything and everything under the sun that you can think of. And so, I've talked about it on my show. I've talked about it, on social media, how I finally had found, a great brand that sells CBD products, hemp products, and all that type of stuff. And I was there one day just because y'all know I be running my mouth. So I was at the store, Nothing But Hemp, out in Maplewood Mall, and I was getting so much information from the young woman. Shout out to Yuri who works there, and she really was so great. And we talked so much stuff about the history of CBD and what to use for this and what can help for that. And so I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot my shot. And so I said, hey, I have a radio show. You all think you want to come on the show? And they were so cool and gracious about it. And so I have them here in the studio today. And so I am super excited. And so I have Eva in the studio and I have Steven from Nothing But Hemp. Welcome you all to the Miss Market Live show.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here.
Yeah, I feel like I'm smiling a lot because the thought of CBD, I think, makes me smile.
Makes you feel good.
Right, which we can say that because it's legal. Okay, now if I was talking about something else, I don't know if I can say that on the radio. But, I want to talk about because, there's been so much talk about, I'm sure especially you all know, like you probably get, I can't even imagine how many questions, just even down to the basics, like what is CBD versus hemp? What is this? What is that? And I've listened to so many different interviews on it. So I was like, I wanted to come and kind of clear up some things, talk about the benefits, and I have some questions on my own that I want to ask you all. But first, I want to talk to you about how you got in the business, how long you've been in the business, and kind of, was it like a personal thing that you wanted to get involved with CBD, hemp, all that type of stuff?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it is definitely a personal thing, but more than anything, so I owned a marketing company for some time, and during that time owning this marketing company, I picked up a client that was all the way out in California, and they happen to be the second largest cultivator in the United States for marijuana. And so I worked with them on many projects on creating strain names and different types of products, and then they started owning dispensaries. So we would build up the dispensaries and we would sell it to a really large retailer that is throughout the country as well. And so that's what got me into at least cannabis.
Yeah.
And so, I was a cannabis smoker at age 13. I'm 36
well, I'm glad
now.
you talked about it first. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it, but since you
and I
that's
stopped.
what brought me to CBD.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no,
continue.
exactly. And I stopped during the time when I went into the Marine Corps. So I spent about 4 years in the Marine Corps, and then I of course stopped doing cannabis. And then when I got out, I was like, you know what, I should start doing this again. And so I've always liked it. I always thought it would be needs to be legal, and so I felt pretty blessed when I actually got the contract out in California. And so when I was out in California, I also was able to pick up another client out in Nevada. And when I was out there, I saw there was a CBD store, and I was like, oh my God. You know what? This is pretty amazing. And so my wife now she's my wife, but at the time she was my fiance. She suffered from major migraines.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
okay.
she's a school teacher. She didn't want to touch marijuana. Totally against it. She
Right.
actually almost dumped me because I smoked marijuana. So now she's okay with it.
So
but at
that's
the time,
why I really went to CBD.
So while we were out in Nevada, she tried CBD and actually got rid of her migraine. And
What did she try, like an oil or?
it was actually a smokable product at
Like
the
the
time.
flowers?
Yep.
Okay.
So it was a vape pen.
Oh,
and so
okay,
she
yeah,
smoked
yeah.
the vape pen. It actually worked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why don't we open up something like this in Minnesota?
Yeah,
And so the minute I started thinking about that, her cousin Javon actually came out to California, and we kind of just talked back and forth about opening up a hemp dispensary. We sat down during Thanksgiving, and we said, hey, let's actually do this. And I was like, you know what? If we do this, I need to contact my girl Eva. And so Eva,
So you all
sitting
knew each
here,
other before?
I've known
Yeah.
Eva since
Okay.
she was 18 years old. I hired her to work for General Nutrition Center
Okay.
years ago in Florida,
Yeah.
and then we both ended up here.
This is just so funny because I'm like
funny.
putting all the pieces together, like, okay, nutrition.
Yep.
You're talking about obviously with cannabis. And I want to ask you too, because you mentioned being in the Marine Corps, right?
Yep.
So when you got out of that and you thought, okay, I want to, dabble in this again, was it due to some of the things that you experienced, during that time? Or would you think it was some things that kind of stemmed before that? Like, what was it that made you want to go back to cannabis?
Oh, the smell, the
Oh, yeah.
taste, everything about it I loved. I mean,
Yeah.
I've always liked cannabis. And for me, I'm dyslexic and ADHD. And for me, it's one of the best things in the world. A lot of people, they get tired off of certain strains. I don't. It actually does the opposite for me. So I always
Lucky,
thought,
but
you know
anyway.
what? This is this is a good way to take something that's a non-pharmaceutical and it's natural, and when you so happen to smoke it, set it on fire, there's some effects, right?
We just happened to just set it
Yeah.
on fire one day and ta-da!
So
What's
I
happened?
always liked it. So I thought
Yeah.
it's actually one of the most amazing plants. And same thing with hemp too. CBD is one of the most amazing plants. We have so many success stories of people taking it for anxiety reasons, for
Yeah.
depression, for migraines. Some people even take it during their pregnancy. But it's really interesting just to see how people are reacting to this part of the plant that's one molecule out of the plant. And there's
Yeah.
so many other cannabinoids out of this wonderful cannabis plant, which is CBG, CBN, and everybody knows THC, and that's the one that gets you high.
I was like, no, so you talking about all these acronyms, okay? Now you said THC. But no, I mean, that was for me kind of how I got into it all too, was from dealing with anxiety and depression. And, one of the things that I was talking to Yuri about was that, if you're dealing with anxiety, for example, and, let's say you get on medication, well, it takes at least like 4 days for that to actually take the effect, that to build up in your system, when it's so hard when you're dealing with something like anxiety, because it can be so debilitating. And so it's like, in that, and then to me back up 4 days to hope that it's going to even have an effect on you, and so that was one of the things that I found so beneficial about with CBD products and stuff, is that it's something that you can use that will take that edge off, that will calm all that down, but you can still be productive,
Exactly.
because I'm not one of
Yeah.
those people like you talked about it making you energetic. I'm not. That's not. That ain't me. That ain't me. But so even for you, I know like we talked about how you guys kind of linked up in the nutrition part, but so for you, how familiar were you with like CBD and kind of its benefits?
Well, interesting enough, when he hired me at GNC all those years ago, I actually stuck in the supplement market.
Okay.
Started another supplement company, moved to Minnesota, moved back here.
Oh, so you're not from here?
I am from here.
Oh, okay.
But
Gotcha.
I moved to Florida for college.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
had 3 kids down there.
Oh, wow.
Got divorced, moved back to Minnesota. Still in the supplement industry here. So I've been following cannabis, but we still couldn't sell it at the time.
Okay.
And so I'm extremely familiar just with natural herbs and homeopathics and different things that can help with anxiety without side effects.
Yeah.
So actually, when Steven approached me again and was telling me about opening these stores, I got so excited because I was already familiar with CBD and with cannabinoids and with how it can help. Started using the products for myself. I don't have like depression or anxiety, but I have 4 kids. That's stressful.
Listen, that is that right there is enough. Like, it's like they always tell people. I remember during my pregnancy, they would say, like, if you never had anxiety, you will definitely have it during pregnancy.
Yes.
But you will definitely experience some level of it afterward. And especially, I would think now, with just the way the world is and we're exposed to so many different things that before we weren't exposed to, just of, like, what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That the levels of anxiety and stuff like that are at an all-time, high. So it's like, if you didn't experience before, you probably will experience, which is just great. Like you were saying, not necessarily having that, but certain, elements of your life, you still gonna need to woosah
Yes.
and calm down. Or we talk about pain and stuff like that. There's so many different uses for it.
I also saw it personally work for a coworker of mine for pain. For me, I'm just less reactionary and I don't swear at my kids as much and I can handle everyday stresses better. But for my coworker, she suffered from chronic pain. She was in a car accident, also anxiety. And we had already tried all these different natural herbs, which did help. Being in the industry I'm in, I've seen the increase in anxiety.
Yeah.
15 years ago when I first started, we hardly ever had customers come in looking for natural alternatives for anxiety. We hardly ever heard of all the autoimmunes that I hear nowadays. So I've just seen the increase in mental health issues.
Yeah.
And people seeking natural alternatives to help with them,
Yeah.
which is great to see. But anyways, back to my original point, when she started using CBD for her pain, I started to see a difference in her quality of life,
Yeah.
in her work, in her mood. So it was really cool for me to see it for a more chronic situation.
Yeah.
But also to feel better myself, which I don't have like chronic pain or anxiety, but I have way more energy. I'm extremely ADHD. So focus for me has been huge.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping better, deeper. I've always been a good sleeper, but just deeper. My baby's not the best sleeper. So helps with that as well.
It's interesting you mentioned that as far as just seeing how, like in a coworker of yours or even yourself, I mean, it really does have a ripple effect because it's like you're using it for maybe one thing, whether it's pain or if it's anxiety, but it's how it then helps you in all those different areas of your life. So, right, like better mood, you're sleeping better, especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
Like I felt you when you said, I don't be passing them out as much. But, you know what I mean? But it has that ripple effect. And I think the biggest thing that I took from that is quality of life. And I feel like we don't talk about that as much. Most time when I hear the phrase quality of life, it's something like someone who's been in an accident or something like, in those terms and what their quality of life would be. We don't really think of it as like, what do we want our quality of life to be?
Yeah.
And I think this definitely helps with all that. I want to get into more of like what it even takes to put together a dispensary and open it. Because I've always been curious about that. And I know nowadays they've been saying like, now if you want to get in the business, like now's the time. But I be feeling like I'm too late. So we've been talking about everything. We're actually just getting into the conversation surrounding like CBD, hemp, everything that falls under that umbrella. And I have some folks here from Nothing But Hemp, Stephen and Eva. I want to say Mr. Steve. Does it sound too formal, Mr. Stephen? Miss Eva.
His voice.
Put you for a Miss. Right, now you got to drop the voice. I put the Mr. Like, hey, how you doing? So, and we are talking about everything CBD. So, as I mentioned before the break, I want to talk about what goes into putting together this type of business, like a dispensary. I've always been curious about that because to me, it just seems like a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So,
I knew you weren't going to deny that. I knew you were going to say yes.
Owning a hemp dispensary, we make it look easy. We always say that, but we do. There's a lot that goes into it. So when we first started, the 2018 Farm Bill did not pass. So there was a 2014 Farm Bill.
What is I don't even know which either one is. So
So the 2018 Farm Bill passed. The President Trump signed a bill that allowed the legal sale of hemp and the legal rights to actually grow hemp as well.
Well, that's surprising. I did not think that would be.
It is. It is.
Just not even a year ago.
Yeah.
Something that right. That's why I was like.
Yeah, not even a year ago.
Oh, you must have been talking about 2014.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so what the law is that as long as the hemp or cannabis is under 0.3% THC, it's considered legal.
Gotcha.
And you can actually grow it and sell it. Now, if you grow it and it goes past that threshold, you actually have to burn down that field. Otherwise, you're going to, get in some big trouble.
Everyone's driving past. It's a fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
What's that smell?
Feel so loose.
Yeah, smells good.
How do you? Because I don't know nothing about, and that's why I have you all here. When we talk about the percentage, like how do you regulate that? Yeah.
So at least for us as retailers, we get something called a COA, and that's a lab report.
Okay.
And so when we work with suppliers, we actually go to the farm and we make sure that it actually exists.
Yeah.
We research and we make sure that the lab is actually a truthful lab, and we'll actually double check to see if the lab has the right certifications, if it has a license with their state, and that's just on the supply chain side. And then on the other side of our business is, when we first opened up here in Minnesota, there wasn't really many regulations behind it. So I'm one of the founders of the Minnesota Hemp Association. So
Oh, wow.
I helped create it, and now we have a great executive director that's out there who runs it pretty much full time, and then we have other board members. And so, of course, we have to lobby with the state.
I see people. I see. I know a guy. He came on the show. He's with the. It's like, I think the title is like Legalize Minnesota. So
Yep.
he's
Okay.
down there. Like, I see him a lot at the Capitol and stuff like that, doing a lot of lobbying stuff, doing stuff like that. So is that kind of similar then to what you have to do?
Yeah,
even,
so
even if it's legal?
we were involved in this last session in regards to the labeling law.
Okay.
And so there was a labeling provision that passed through the state, and it was in regards of what needs to be on the label of CBD products. So there's always ongoing changing regulations that we have to look at. And sometimes, I'm all for regulation, but I think it's really important that the lawmakers actually consult people in the hemp industry so they understand what they're talking about.
You gotta. It's like the show. Those on the menu have a seat at the table. You always have to have those at the table in any of those processes if you're going to actually make it something that is that makes sense. I'll say that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when we opened up our business, we opened up our first location at a kiosk, and we weren't sure if they were going to shut us down, keep us open. We called.
you went to.
Was that the one I'm not gonna lie, because
Yep.
I can't remember who I was talking to when I was just telling them about it. And like, oh, where are they located? And I was like, they're at the mall. They're like, they're at the mall. They selling such at the mall. Like, no, you can't. This is not no Snoop Dogg's shop ain't at the mall, y'all. Okay, it's not that type of situation. But I wondered that, like, people walking by, like, especially if you see the flowers.
Yeah.
You know, like, I would wonder sometimes people are like, what's really going on?
What's going on here?
They sell
Are
this.
you allowed to sell that?
Yeah, are we allowed to
Okay,
sell
right.
that? So,
Exactly.
they allowed us to open up. It was a very, very small risk because it was a kiosk, and it actually grew. It worked. So we got contacted by a bunch of media, and that really kind of propelled us. We were one of the first in the market, and that really brought us to where our brand is today.
Yeah.
And we kept on opening up multiple locations, and so now we have a affiliate program, which is very similar to like a franchise, like CrossFit. So CrossFit's not a franchise, they're actually an affiliate. So if people want to use our brand and our distribution, they actually will sign a contract with us, and we'll teach them how to open up a location. But there's a lot that goes into it. There's some legalities. There's always ongoing changing regulations. There's banking issues. So we're treated just like a cannabis company. So we were lucky enough to work with a community bank here in town that actually would take our money. So for a while,
Oh, so they didn't want to be affiliated.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wells Fargo won't
because-
work with us. Any
We're
of the
high
big
risk.
banks won't work with us. So and so that was an issue, and also processing, credit card processing. So we were a cash only business for a long time, just like a marijuana business.
I was gonna say that sounds like something.
Yeah. So everything was treated like. So we actually set up our business very similar to a regular cannabis company. We have a management company, then we have our brand, and that's the way how we kind of constructed our business. And we're still the same way. The only difference is now we actually have a bank that knows exactly what we do, and they understand it, and they have no problem, because before they were completely confused.
Yeah, I could see.
And
Yeah.
they wanted to make sure it's not marijuana.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then we also have a processor that we're able to work with, and we really lucked out because we're one of the top brands in the country.
Yeah.
Square actually reached out to us and allowed us to be part of their beta program, and so we were able to be part of their beta credit card program for the hemp industry, which has been absolutely phenomenal for
Yeah,
us.
it's been huge.
Yeah. Do you think it's just interesting that you talk about now as far as banks, not wanting to be affiliated and stuff, kind of that fine line, of course, we're talking about cannabis, but do you see that kind of changing though over time? Like, I would think now that the business is growing so big that more banks would want to get on that.
Yeah, the bank we work with right now it's really interesting. There's a lot of compliance that goes into it. So we're sending every lab report every time we get a new product in. And then we talk about the supplier, where they're from, and they'll do their due diligence to make sure that we're not actually carrying marijuana. And so, in a business like ours, it is pretty easy to go and do that, which we think it's a bad idea for whoever's in this industry to do that, because you can actually shut down an entire industry for doing something like that. And so we really make sure that whoever we're working with, it is hemp, and they're growing it for hemp. And that is a difference. And so cannabis is cannabis, but by law, as long as it's under 0.3%, it becomes hemp.
See, that is what I wanted to clarify, because for me, like I kept saying, I'm like CBD, hemp. Like I feel like I'm throwing all these terms, and it's like, right, how do you, what constitutes hemp or what? So that makes it easier to understand.
So our CBD comes from industrial hemp, right? And so you could also get CBD from marijuana, but it's still the same cannabinoid. It really is. And so the only difference is the amount of THC.
So how do people actually? Well, first thing I wanted to ask, because Eva, do you go out to the labs and stuff too to see? So have you all ever been to one that wasn't legit?
No, we have not.
I think that might be kind of.
But
like,
we've
made
got
phone calls though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've definitely received products that were not legit.
Gotcha.
And many that, they're sending products to us, samples, and has no CBD in it. It says CBD on the bottle, but there's nothing in it. So that's why the labeling law is created, because they're putting fillers inside that could be dangerous and harmful. They're putting too much MCT oil inside. They're really putting some harmful stuff inside the products that are not good for consumers. So a lot of the smoke shops, unfortunately, they're looking to get a quick profit. That's why you're seeing CBD everywhere, but they really don't know where it's sourced from. So we take that extra step to make sure whoever we're working with, they have a good story, number one, because we want them to fit with our brand, because we have a good story.
Yeah, and you have, not to cut you off, but one of the things that kind of attracted me to even go to y'all is because I went through your reviews and stuff online. I had a friend who told me about you all, but it was when I went on Facebook, and like I could not find a bad review. And the things that stuck out to me was people talked about how friendly the staff is, and that stuck out to me because we're talking about dealing with. But people use it for like anxiety and depression. That can be a very like kind of daunting or intimidating experience to go to a place and then tell them that, tell them why you're interested in it. Because you kind of have to have those conversations. And then if you're met with someone who's not, friendly or is just kind of like, or can't relate at all, that could just be like, I don't even want to try. And so that's what made my experience personally, a great experience, was because I already knew going into it, the staff is going to be friendly and open. And I mean, as soon as I walked up, actually, I called a couple of times because I was like, I'm at the mall.
Where is
and
this? Where is
it
this
says
place?
y'all at the mall, but I know that can't be right. But both times it was, two different women that I work with. And both, as soon as I walked up, super friendly, super, engaged, like, just ready to tell me anything I needed to know. So I can imagine why it would be so important to really vet everyone out. Because, right, you want to make sure that they all align. And if I were to go to their website, that aligns with your brand and your mission.
Yep. And the big thing with us, too, is so all of our reps go through an endocannabinoid CBD training that's actually done by a doctor. So they actually... So a doctor that certifies you in endocannabinoid and CBD certification. So it's a professional certification that they receive. If they're a nurse, they'll actually get some credits towards their CMUs for the end of the year, which is great.
So is that something that is kind of just unique to you all, or do other companies that
I don't
sell
believe
CBD
that there's any other
that?
CBD company in the United States that does that. And then we also bring them through retail training, sales training, product training. So we really go in depth with our training. And we also have a mission, too. So we are a minority-owned business as well. So
hey, you like that.
Javon Jenkins he's a black man. I'm black as well. And then we have a woman business owner here, and we have another one, which is my my wife, and then Santino.
You don't see that.
So we're a minority-owned business. A good amount of our staff members are minority members. So, and that's just kind of part of our brand. We wanted to be a little bit different than everybody else. And then we also want to educate the public. So part of our brand is really, we want to be that educational brand. So we have a copywriter on staff who was a journalist at the U. And so he is writing papers all the time and blogs, and we're really educating the public. So even if you notice in our advertisements, it's not really an ad; it's about education.
Yeah.
And so, and that's how we're different than the rest.
Yeah.
And we'll stay different that way.
I agree with that. Like I talked about with my experience, it was that educational piece that really stuck out, to me. But it's also cool because, we talk about so much with like getting in this industry and how it's, how I want to put it. So if you talk about like people like who have been incarcerated for selling marijuana, for example, and just how, okay, so if we legalize cannabis, but like what real opportunities would those folks be able to get in on that type of business, stuff like that. And so it's really like, it really sticks out to me to hear just the minority level of, you're talking about people of color, of women who normally might be kept out of, whether it's hemp or what have you. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, it's bigger than hemp. I mean, it's bigger than that. It's really about the education. It's about creating opportunities. You know what I mean? And like we talked about that quality, of life. So it's Miss Margaret Live, if you couldn't tell. And we have been chatting up here with the folks from Nothing But Hemp, having a great conversation. Everything. I finally now understand the difference as far as like from cannabis to hemp, CBD, all that type of stuff. So one of the things we were just talking about during the break was there's so many uses for the products. So even Stephen will point, even time to shine. It's go time. So, but like people like just there's such a range of different reasons. Like we kind of spoke about earlier, that people use the products for. Like I mentioned my mom's friend. She posts a lot of stuff on Facebook just about health and working out. And one of the things that she's really talked about a lot is CBD oil and how it's helped her with hair loss, which is something that, excuse me, I never would have even thought, and my mom had mentioned it to me, like, she's talking about hair loss. I think I might try that. I'm thinking of oil, talking about anxiety, and she talking about hair loss. I mean, so it was just the spectrum is just crazy how much. So I wanted to ask you a couple of different things that you've heard people using it for. I mean, there's so many different what's the word? I mean, because you got oils,
so
balms,
uses,
and
so many ways
face washes. I saw there was like a lotion, all that type of stuff.
For myself, I've always made these weird hair masks. I've actually experienced hair loss after I had baby number 3.
I was going to ask, was it after pregnancy? Because
Yes.
that's when a lot of women experience it. Yep.
And it's interesting because my whole life I've always had super long hair past my butt. I've always had the hair. After baby number 3, it started falling out, so I had to chop it off, go to a short haircut for a while.
Was that like, I feel like especially as women,
It was
our
traumatic.
hair, that's exactly, I was going to say
It was
that
traumatic.
for us is,
Yeah.
woo. Yeah.
Well, I was also a self-bleacher at the time, so that didn't help the health of my hair. But no matter what, I normally had hair that could take it.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, even with myself, with using cannabis, I feel like it's helped with the shine. Like the length my hair is now, I haven't had this length in years.
So your hair is long now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been. It would get to
Yeah.
that point, and it wouldn't get past that point.
Yeah.
But we do have this body oil, which people typically apply for natural pain relief because it absorbs through the skin. It has your carrier oils in there, like jojoba and grapeseed and olive oil. And then it has some extra stuff for pain, like arnica and comfrey and peppermint, combined with CBD. So what do? I put it in my hair.
See, I would have thought, shoot,
Makes your hair shiny and soft, and you can rinse it out with regular shampoo. Because I used to combine coconut oil and olive oil and jojoba oil on my own and kind of make my own little hair mask. So that was pretty cool.
How'd you even think to put CBD with the hair
The
mask?
jinx, probably.
Well,
You know what I
just
mean?
Because
I'm like,
I've
how
lately
do you-
just been, how do I cover myself with CBD?
Right. Just want to be covered everywhere I go.
I always call it maximum comfort. You want
Yeah.
to get it internally, so it can go to all of the different cannabinoids in the body and deal with homeostasis or balance. And that's why, like what you were saying earlier, is people use it for so many different things, and everyone gets a different response to it. It's very unique to the individual.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool in store because I've actually heard a few people talk about their hair. I had one customer tell me that for him, his vision has been better, which is something
Really?
that you don't normally think about because there's
Yeah.
cannabinoid receptors in our eyes. For myself, something I didn't notice was a huge improvement in my digestion
Yeah.
because it's dealing with communication in the body. So your gut is like your second brain. So it has similar receptors to our actual brain.
Can I just say something? This is why we talking about when you go to see them. All these gems she just dropped right here. That was like 10 different gems in like 30 seconds, right? keep going. I want to.
So it helps with digestion. You become
Yeah.
very regular. There's different components to hemp. So you have terpenes, which is like the oils, the scent. You have flavonoids. It's also a great source of chlorophyll. It's actually very, very alkalizing. It helps relax the brain. It deals with appetite. It's actually an appetite suppressant, which something we commonly hear is, am I going to want to go eat now? Am I going to get the munchies?
The munchies, right?
And there's that confusion, THC directly attaches to your receptors, creating an appetite. CBD
Yeah.
is the opposite. It's not directly attaching to anything. It's just making your body more receptive to the natural endocannabinoids that are already in the system. I mean, we get cannabinoids from chocolate,
Oh, yeah.
from elderberry. So you take CBD and your body is more responsive to these things. It's more responsive to your own serotonin and dopamine that's in between receptors.
Yeah.
So that's why you're naturally in a better mood. Pain relief, of course, is one of the most common things that we hear is dealing with inflammation. I've heard a lot of people use it for eczema. I actually had a personal experience with that. My 2-year-old, she was starting to get these rashes on her
Yeah.
leg. Actually, kind of random places since she was born, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was eczema.
Eczema is pretty. I have that.
It's random.
I
Yeah.
have it like where it's more triggered. So like I knew a couple of kids when we were growing up who had eczema, and theirs was all the time. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like a rash. And I remember this one girl I knew, it was all her arms. She used to always wear like long sleeves. It didn't matter what time of the year it was.
Yeah.
Because her eczema was just that intense. And for me, mine's like triggered. So like when the seasons change and stuff like that, if it gets real dry, all of a sudden it'll pop up. And it'll be like super random, like on my
Yeah.
fingers, or just sometimes I won't notice him on my leg, but yeah, it will just. I never thought though of now that's what I'm gonna try because it can be hard to figure out
Yeah.
what to do with it, and eczema is like levels to it.
And that's
you
why,
know?
like, when I first saw those spots popping up, I was like, oh, great. What is it? Am I going to have
Right.
to, like, go through the dietary changes, changing, your laundry detergent, all
Yeah.
of this? And sure enough, I had my CBD body oil next to my bed. So I brought it down and put it next to where I changed her diaper. And every time I
yeah.
changed her diaper, I just applied it and rubbed it in. And the body oil worked really nice for her. She's a squirmy, toddler. And within a couple days, the spots went away. So I was grateful because I didn't have to
Yeah.
go through all the other things I thought I was going to have to go to try and figure out what it is or what's
Yeah,
triggering
the
it.
dermatologist, and you got to pay
Yeah.
whatever
There's a lot of stuff.
for that. Yeah, that's really interesting. Just because I never thought about that, but I'm
I didn't
definitely going
know.
to try that. Yeah,
I didn't know if it was going to help, but I'm like, it can't.
You never
hurt.
know, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe that's kind of how people kind of figure out like how it works too. Just kind of like you talk about with the hair mask or something like that. Like, well, we got this. Let me just see.
Yeah.
What happens? And so interesting that the benefits within it. It's just the multi-purpose of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't know. Okay, y'all. I'm gonna say this all wrong. Okay. But I could have sworn. Don't our bodies kind of naturally produce something, I feel, that has to do with like CBD with hemp and all that type of stuff?
Well, we naturally produce endocannabinoids.
Okay, that's what you were saying. Yeah. Okay.
And polyphenols.
Yeah, okay.
So this actually just helps us utilize what's naturally there, and
Yeah.
it helps our body to be able to produce it on its own.
I learned that through
Yeah.
you all at the kiosk, and that's why I was like, I know I'm gonna say that's wrong, but I was like so surprised. I was like, I never knew that.
It's amazing.
yeah.
I mean, I even had one customer told me she's been taking it for a couple months, and she came in and said, I had no allergies this year. No, it's not like that for everyone, but for this lady
Right.
in particular, that was what it did for her. She normally
Yeah.
takes her Benadryl and her allergy stuff every year, and she's like, oh, I just haven't had to this year, and I've been fine, and the only thing I changed is I've started incorporating CBD.
Yeah.
So that was cool to hear.
Yeah.
Might not do that for somebody else, but I did
Yeah.
it for her. I have an employee who actually, for him, I didn't know he was on blood pressure medication for many, many years. And for him, he was able to slowly wean himself off. And he actually did wean himself off over a course of time. And then he said he went to the doctor. They took his numbers. And they said, your numbers are great. Keep taking your meds. And he said, well, that's interesting because I'm actually not. This is just for him. You know, it's very unique. So I always recommend people to do the research. But it's so cool for me to hear that story that he was able to do that.
Oh. I wanted to ask you too quickly, because you already kind of mentioned it. But one of my questions I had, dang, Eva, you took my question too. I just knew I was going to hit you with something I was playing. But no, I want to talk about with CBD and children and just kind of, you know, so I thought, is that something, and you kind of answered, that's safe to use depending on what you're using. But I kind of wanted to, you know, get y'all's opinion on it.
Yeah, so number one, anything CBD related with children or even yourself, consult with your doctor.
Yeah. That was a great media answer too.
Yeah.
By the way.
Thank you very much.
It's a great PR answer.
In my opinion, I would rather give a child CBD over some of the pharmaceuticals that are out there.
Yeah.
I really think the natural homeopathic way is the way. I know the big drug companies don't like that, but why are you extracting something that's natural and then changing it? It's because you want to patent and make tons of money off of it. And to me, that's really sad.
Well, and you know, if we talk about, you know, big pharmaceutical companies now, I mean, I know a lot of people who can't afford medication. They can't afford, you know, things that they need. I know I have a friend of mine who has lupus, and you know, she talks about the fact that, you know, with her insurance, it's like capped out. She's run through all the funds from any type of like state funding that she, you know, could receive. And so it's like, right, if you're dealing with chronic pain like that or something, this could be something that could work instead of that when you don't have the means to one, or if you don't have insurance, we'll start there, medical insurance. And then even with that, these prices are just skyrocketing, you know? And so it's like, then what is the alternative? What do you do? Where do you go? Do you just suffer? Or you can hopefully find something like this that could also, you know, that could help and give you some relief.
Yeah. It's pretty sad because some of the medical dispensaries out there, you know, 100 milligrams of CBD can cost you a few $100s.
Yeah.
And you come to our stores, you're not going to be paying, a few $100s for something like that.
Right, yeah.
And so it's just really interesting to kind of see how, on the medical side, how much they're charging. And it's really harming people.
It's sad.
Look at insulin.
Yeah, I know. Even my son's inhaler, like I went to go because I said I can't, y'all. I don't even remember how much it was. I don't remember because I blacked it out. I think I blacked out when they told me over the phone. But it was just ridiculous. Like he needs this to breathe. This is a respiratory, you know, medication, and it was like 90. I can't remember. It was something really, really high. And you know, it's obviously, I'm not saying like use CBD for that, but I'm just saying, it was just like, wow, this is where we're going with stuff that people really need in the prices. So that's what's so great about this, because there's so many different ways you can use it. It can work for so many different things. So that's why I like really encourage folks to look into it. So I know we have to take one quick little break. Then we'll have a couple more minutes, wrap things up with you all. But it's been such an interesting conversation. So let's get this little break out the way. And that sounded bad, but yeah, we're gonna get this little break out the way, and then and then we'll be right back.
The Internet Geeks at IP House are proud supporters of the KFAI community. IP House provides internet hosting and access for your community, large or small. More information is available at iphouse.com.
All right, and we are back. So one thing that I just wanted to announce real briefly is that coming up on the 22nd is Miss Margaret Live and Friends. So that is, yes, the 22nd from 2 to 6 p.m. at, wait, what did you say, TJ? Say it again.
Be there.
Yes, be there.
We'll be there.
Or be yes, and what's so great about this, Nothing But Hemp will be at the event. I had like a vision for wanting to do, people always ask me, you know, when are you going to have an audience for your show? When are you going to do like a live show? And then people will call and say, oh, who was that you just had on the show? Who was this? Who was that? So I'm like, I'm always thinking work smarter, not harder. And how do I combine the two? So that's how Miss Margaret Live and Friends, it's basically like an expo. You know, the first portion of it, we have different vendors and performances. You get your mimosas, all different type of stuff. And then that the second half of it is my show, the broadcast of my actual show. So Nothing But Hemp will be there. It's gonna be really cool. So they'll be talking about a lot of stuff that we talked about. You'll be there, be able to get a couple like samples and stuff to see like how does this feel? Does it work for you? So I'm really excited about you all being. That was kind of like my little secret weapon. Like, ha! Don't nobody have this at their event, but and we might be squeezing in a little farmers market. I know y'all. I know I do the most. Like I said, I'm a Capricorn. I'm a middle of the month Capricorn. I can't help it. Okay, I'm extra. I'm extra. So we might have Frogtown Farms might be at the event as well. So that's gonna be really cool. So we got 1 minute left. I always say this every week. I need a part 2 of my show because it goes by so fast. But I'm so grateful for you all coming here today. I did want you all to let the people know though where they can get information. You know, what's the website? You know, where they can find you all.
Yeah, of course. So our website is nothingbutHemp.net. We have locations across the Twin Cities. So we have one in Uptown Minneapolis, one on Grand Avenue, a kiosk in Maplewood Mall. We also have a store in Forest Lake. And then we have an affiliate location in Cloquet, as well as Tampa.
Cloquet?
So kind of towards Duluth, up
Oh,
north.
okay. I should have said I know where Cloquet is.
And we're opening up one downtown White Bear.
Hey, so that's the next move. So you can catch them there, and of course you can catch them next Sunday, the 22nd, at Miss Margaret Live and Friends. I have all the information for that on my Facebook page.